Alrighty, let's start today off with UJ. Now, mind you, we have a high impact news on both USD and Euro pairs. Okay, so our first pair is UJ. Now, I have my sell zone up here and my buy zone down here. My sell zone up here, engulfing buy, that failed. Price came back, created an engulfing sell, and the second engulfing sell. So we have a complete A, B, C, right? Or your HLZ or your EF, EG, EG, however you want to call it. Okay? We know that the sellers over here are quite strong. Then we have a buy zone down here, engulfing sell that failed. Price came back, created the first engulfing buy. Oops. Then it poked through the zone and into the key level, flew up into our sell zone over here, came back down, poked, closed within, did not create an engulfing buy yet. Previous H4 closed within, and now we're on this H4 where the current price is just over here. Okay, so what can UJ do? Now, UJ, screenshot real quick. Let me just turn this off to do not disturb real quick. Okay, so for UJ, current price is here. If it decides to drop into our buy zone and respects that, then potentially we can catch a buy back up. But if it breaks below, it might want to test a lower area. Once it breaks, either the price can shoot down in one go to the next zone or retrace back into the key level for a sell down. Vice versa, if it decides to shoot up into our sell zone and respects that, then potentially we can catch a sell back down. But if it breaks above, then it might want to test a higher area. Okay? Now, we do have a high impact news on USD pairs too. So if it decides to just fly, it might just fly. If it decides to just drop, it will drop huge because it is a high impact news. So what you can do is don't trade around the black zone. Wait for proper levels. If it reaches, then you may enter. If it does not, then you stay out of it. Okay? There's no point in chasing any pair or chasing the market because most of the time you will end up losing. And especially if there is a high impact news and you decide to chase, let's say you trade the news and you see it's dropping really quick, then you start selling. Let's say it's dropping really quick and you start selling like this. Maybe it will retrace back up because this first drop was just to touch a key level. So after this, you will just end up floating, and some of you might be too greedy to actually close or cut loss. Okay, so you will end up losing that way. So better to just wait in the zones. If it retraces back in for our buy zone, then potentially we can catch a buy. If it doesn't, then we wait for this sell up here. Okay, where do you monitor for your entries? Again, monitor M5 or M15 for entry. Okay, what do you look for? Your engulfings, okay? Stick to the basics. Engulfing meets engulfing fail meets engulfing, or your ABCs. All right, so that's UJ. Oops. What is happening? Oh. Okay, that was a bit weird. Never mind. Now, NZD/USD. Current price is over here. I have my sell zone up here and my buy zone down here. For my sell zone, engulfing sell meets an engulfing sell, meets another engulfing sell, and another engulfing sell. Okay, so we know that the sellers over here are quite strong. They're trying to keep the price lower than this engulfing sell's high. Okay, then our buy zone, engulfing sell, that failed. Price came back, created this engulfing buy. Okay, current price is over here. So either we wait for it to retrace into this buy level or wait for the news to be released. Either drop really hard, poke this for a fly, or fly into this sell zone and we wait for a sell. Okay, so what can NZD/US do for total potentials? If it decides to drop into our buy zone and respects that, then potentially we can catch a buy back up. But if it breaks below, then it might want to test a lower area. Vice versa, if it decides to just fly into our sell zone and respects that, then we can catch a sell. But if it breaks above, then potentially it might want to test a higher area. Now, where do you place your SLs? I'm going to keep repeating this, okay? For your SLs, once you've entered in or around the key levels, you count 40 pips from your entry. So if you were to take a buy over here, you count 40 pips. If you were to take a sell over here, you count 40 pips, okay? And that will be your SL. That will be enough space for the pairs to move. I'm not saying this that you can use 40 pips for the news. If you want to trade the news, manually cut. If you start floating and it just goes beyond, cut your losses. If it goes straight away in blues, make sure you place break even. Okay, but if you're not comfortable trading the news, then wait till after the news has settled down and you just look for proper zones. Okay, so that's for NZD USD. Now we go to Euro USD. Since today we have both USD and Euro high impact news, so I've marked 3 zones because the current price is over here. Okay. I do have a feeling that it might sell down, but it might poke here or here first before selling down because it is slowly retesting this zone and it's been bouncing quite a lot. And if we go into a higher time frame, you can see that this is a heavy downtrend, but it has been corrected over here, breaking and breaking and breaking, but failed to break above this high just yet. So after that, it just dropped. If we go into an even higher time frame, you can see that even on the weekly, it's on a downtrend. And recently, it just broke this support over here. So this high is just testing this support before the drop. Okay, potentially, we're talking about potentials. We're just seeing how the higher time frame works to help guide ourselves better. I'm not saying that it will happen 100%, but checking the higher time frames, you can see what gives a higher chance. Okay, so that's just what I am looking at. Now, for my sell zones, my 2 sell zones, we have a fresh engulfing fail. This was an engulfing buy that failed. Not only that, after this happened, it created this EMA crossing. I didn't take this particular candle because we do have a gap. As you can see, this candle closed here and this candle opened here. So we have a gap and I don't want to take that because it is missing data. So I'm taking the next closest one, which is this one, engulfing buy that failed and it had a support over here before breaking. So we know that the sellers over here were able to overpower this zone. Fresh engulfing fail. Then up here we have, up top, we have an engulfing buy, supported once, price came back, it was able to stay above it, then came back, created an engulfing sell within the zone, and broke the zone. So we have an EF, ES already. Price came back again to create the second engulfing sell. After that, it poked the key level and just dropped. Okay, so we also know that the sellers over here are quite strong. Okay, so again, please don't trade in the black zone, okay? Stay out of the black zone. Now, what can EU do? Oops. Screenshot. Current price is here. If it decides when the news is released, whether it be USD or Euro, either it can fly into our first sell zone, and if it respects that, then potentially we can catch a sell back down. If it breaks above, then we know we have a higher zone up above that can act as a zone where the sellers are waiting to activate. After breaking this zone, either it can shoot up into this zone if the volume is high enough, the buyers keep the momentum going, or it can retrace back into this key level for a better buy up. Okay, now mind you, EU is quite a slow pair. But from this drop on H4, 2 H4s yesterday, it amounted to around 260 pips from just the was it? I think it was PPI. Okay, PPI news. So usually you would see Euro USD with this amount of pips. Not much, 20 to 60 a day, 20 to 40 a day, never really going over 100. But this is the product of a high impact news. Hence, the zones that I am marking gives a bit of space for that to move to happen so we can catch that poke. Okay, we can catch that poke of, let's say, if it just suddenly flies, pokes, drops. We can catch it over here. If it decides to drop and poke, flies, then we catch it over here. If it breaks this zone, either we wait for this key level for a fly back up, or we wait for here for a poke and drop. Okay, so I want that because I don't want to trade when the news is released and the price is over here. You don't know if it's going to go up or down. So wait for the news to release and see the direction that it is headed to. Then you can kind of wait in these points. Okay? Now, if you if EU decides to drop into our buy zone and respects it, then potentially we can catch a buy back up. But if it breaks below, you can wait for at the next buy zone or wait in this key level for the price to retrace for a better sell down. Okay, so that's for all the pairs. Where do you TP? Again, TPing, technically, you go from zone to zones, okay? But if you are a newbie or you are a beginner or even if you've traded for a few years, but you still have that impatience, you still have that nervousness, you still have that anxiety, pick a TP point that feels easy for you, that does not give you stress. So say if 20 pips, you know what, that's your sweet spot, set it at 20 pips. And if you want to push your limits, just do 20, 30, 40 or 20, 40, 60 or however you want to go. But pick TP points that make sense to you. Technically, of course, we're going to do from zone to zone, right? That's technical analysis. But when you start out, you need to build confidence in your setups. You need to build that confidence that I can hold up to this TP. So take it step by step and don't cross that. If you don't have the patience to wait from zone to zone, then break it down into smaller TPs. At least you get to take profit as it goes, and if it decides to reverse into the next direction with a other news release, or other zones that were created freshly in the smaller time frames, then at least you will get some. Maybe not all, but some. After TP1 hits, make sure you set break even, and then you let your other entries run if you are setting multiple TPs. Okay, if you are not and you reach your daily target already, then stop trading for the day and you wait for tomorrow. Okay, as easy as that. I'm going to get back to replying to your messages. And yeah, I'll talk to you there, okay? See you, bye.